There are moments in life when the air around you shifts ever so slightly, not in noise or spectacle, but in a quiet stirring of the soul. It is as though heaven leans close and whispers, not with thunder, but with stillness, "Prepare." You may not see the full shape of what is coming, but something within begins to awaken, to rise, to ready itself. And though the path ahead may not yet be visible, the call is clear. Something is on its way. Not just a change of circumstance, but a divine unfolding. A breakthrough shaped not by chance, but by purpose. There is a sacred stillness that often comes before the stirring of miracles, a quiet whisper that precedes the wonder. It does not always come with grandeur or spectacle. More often it tiptoes into the soul like morning light through a window, soft, subtle, before the heavens open and the breakthrough bursts forth. There is a gentle beckoning, a holy invitation that asks you not merely to look ahead, but to listen within. It is in this tender space that divine preparation begins, not with noise, but with nuance, not in haste, but in the hush. Many miss it, for they are looking for signs in the sky, when the signs are unfolding in their spirit. The whisper of breakthrough does not shout over your chaos, it calls through your quiet. It may come in a sudden shift of restlessness, a gentle prompting to let go of something familiar, or a deepened hunger for something more. It may be a stirring in your heart that no one else notices, a sense that the ground beneath your life is preparing to open with promise, even though nothing visible has yet changed. But make no mistake, this whisper is not imagination, it is invitation. It is heaven's way of drawing your attention before it draws your blessing. It is the soft echo of the future gently tapping on the present, asking if you are awake enough to perceive what is coming. For every wonder that God unfolds is preceded by preparation, and every preparation begins with awareness. You must train your soul to discern these whispers. The signs of divine preparation are not always loud, but they are always intentional. Perhaps your usual rhythms are suddenly disrupted, not by misfortune, but by reordering. Perhaps certain doors begin to close, not as punishment, but as preservation. Perhaps the things that once satisfied now feel hollow, not because you are failing, but because you are being called higher. These are not signs of abandonment, they are signals of alignment. Sometimes God begins to move not by adding, but by subtracting. Not by giving more, but by asking you to carry less. He begins to clear the ground before he builds something new. He removes what is temporary to make room for what is eternal. And though the process may confuse the mind, it will clarify the spirit. You are being made ready, not just for change, but for elevation. And if you listen closely, you will hear it, the whisper that says, "Prepare." Preparation is not merely a physical act, it is a posture of the heart. It is learning to respond to the unseen with the same faith you would offer to the visible. It is believing the rain is coming while the skies are still clear. It is setting the table while the guest is still on the road. It is oiling your lamp while others sleep. This kind of readiness is not born of desperation, but of discernment. It is not frantic, it is faithful. The whisper before the wonder often calls you to obedience that feels inconvenient. You may be asked to forgive before the apology comes, to sow before the harvest appears, to take a step before the path is illuminated. But this is the very essence of divine preparation. It teaches you to move not by sight, but by surrender. And in that surrender, your heart becomes fertile ground for breakthrough to take root. Do not wait for clarity to begin your preparation. Begin because your spirit knows what your mind does not yet understand. Begin because the whisper has awakened something in you that refuses to sleep again. Begin because you are not preparing for possibility, you are preparing for promise. When you begin to prepare in faith, even while nothing has changed, you are declaring to heaven and to earth, "I believe, I trust, I am ready, and such a declaration never goes unnoticed. It is in the moments when you prepare in secret that heaven prepares to reward you in the open. It is in the days when no one sees that your roots grow deep enough to sustain the weight of what is to come. This is why preparation is holy. It is not wasted time, it is sacred work. It is not what delays the blessing, it is what deepens your capacity to carry it. You cannot hold the weight of glory with a casual spirit. You must be stretched, strengthened, shaped. And it begins with the whisper, the soft but steady call to rise before the world sees the sunrise. Perhaps that is where you are now. You feel something stirring, something unspoken, yet undeniably real. Your spirit is restless, not with fear, but with anticipation. You sense that something is shifting, even though the landscape looks unchanged. That is the whisper. That is your cue. Begin to prepare. Clear the space in your soul. Lay aside what no longer serves your journey. Lift your eyes beyond the now. Tend to your roots. Strengthen your spirit. Purify your intentions. Not because it looks like anything is happening, but because you know, deep in the marrow of your being, that everything is about to change. And when the wonder comes, and it will not catch you by surprise. It will find you ready. It will find you alert, steady, and open. Because you listened when others dismissed. You prepared when others paused. You moved in step with the whisper before the wonder arrived. That is the secret path of those who walk with purpose. They do not wait for certainty. They respond to the stirring. They do not chase spectacle. They honor the stillness. They do not demand signs. They become signs. Living testimonies of what it means to prepare, not for what might happen, but for what heaven has already declared. There is a sacred tension that exists between the moment a promise is whispered and the hour it finally unfolds. It is the space in between, the quiet corridor we often call waiting. And yet waiting is not passive. It is not merely the absence of activity or the prolonged silence of divine delays. It is, in its truest form, a furnace where faith is refined. It is the inner sanctum where trust is tested, where your soul learns to lean not on what it sees, but on who it believes. Faith in the waiting room is unlike faith in the moment of arrival. It is not the faith that bursts forth in celebration, but the faith that holds steady when nothing yet makes sense. It is not loud or flashy. It does not feed on signs and wonders. It feeds on truth. Quiet, unmoving, unshakable truth. It is the faith that whispers yes, even when all your circumstances scream no. It is the faith that chooses to believe that God is working in the silence, building in the shadows, preparing what your eyes cannot yet see. To trust the process before the promise is to understand that there is purpose in the delay. Not every waiting season is a punishment. Not every pause is a denial. Sometimes it is the kindness of God that slows you down, for the weight of the promise would crush a soul not yet strengthened by process. The waiting is not wasted time. It is the hidden classroom where your spirit is trained, your character is carved, your roots grow deep. There is something deeply sacred about learning to walk by faith in a room where nothing changes day after day. To wake each morning and choose belief again, not because the evidence is convincing, but because the one who promised is faithful. That is the soil where real trust is born. Not trust in outcomes, but trust in the nature of the one who holds your future. It is trust that learns to rest, not because everything feels secure, but because your security no longer depends on what you can control. You begin to realize as the waiting lengthens that there are treasures hidden in the in-between, things you would not have seen if the promise had arrived too quickly. You begin to notice the subtle shifts inside you, the way your heart grows softer, the way your prayers grow deeper, the way your dependence on God becomes not a discipline, but a delight. These are not detours, they are the path itself. And oh, how gently He works in these hidden spaces. Sometimes He allows unanswered questions to remain, not to torment, but to train your soul to rest in mystery. Sometimes He allows silence to stretch, not to distance Himself, but to deepen your longing for His voice. Sometimes He withholds the answer because He is more interested in forming your spirit than in fulfilling your request on schedule. Faith in the waiting room learns to stop measuring progress by visible signs. It learns instead to trust that every quiet day is building something beneath the surface. Seeds do not sprout overnight. Roots do not grow in haste. And the most beautiful stories are often the ones that take the longest to unfold, not because they are forgotten, but because they are being formed with care. There is a holy stillness that grows in the heart of one who has waited long and yet still believes. It is not resignation, it is resilience. It is not apathy, it is anchored hope. It is the quiet fire that says, I will not move unless He leads, and I will not give up unless He tells me it is time to let go. That kind of faith is not easily shaken, for it has weathered storms in silence and still chosen trust. So if you find yourself now in the waiting room, do not despise it. Do not rush to escape it. Do not assume something is wrong because the door has not yet opened. Sometimes the waiting is where the real transformation happens. You are not just waiting for something, you are becoming someone. Let the waiting refine you. Let it strip away your striving, your need to force outcomes, your tendency to measure worth by speed. Let it teach you the beauty of stillness, the strength of surrender, the dignity of trust. Let it form in you a spirit that is not easily swayed by circumstances, but anchored in eternal truth. And when the promise finally comes, and it will not just be the fulfillment of your desire, it will be the fruit of a soul that has learned to wait well. You will look back and see that the process was not a delay, it was a preparation. It shaped you into a vessel that could carry the blessing without breaking, that could hold the joy without being consumed by it. For faith in the waiting room is not wasted, it is the strongest kind. The faith that stands in the absence of signs is the faith that will endure even in abundance. And when your breakthrough comes, you will not be shaken by it, because you have been strengthened in the shadows. This is the beauty of trusting the process before the promise. It teaches you that God is just as present in the hallway as He is in the throne room, that He is just as faithful in the delay as He is that the one who calls you to wait is the same one who holds time in His hands, and He wastes none of it. So breathe deep, lift your head, and sit with grace in the waiting room. Not because it is easy, but because it is holy. Not because you feel strong, but because you are being made strong. And when the promise comes, you will not just receive it, you will carry it with the quiet strength of one who has learned to trust before the answer ever arrived. There is a profound truth hidden in the fabric of every great unfolding, that before something new is poured out, space must first be made. Before the heavens release their rain, the earth must be tilled. Before a vessel is filled, it must be emptied of what no longer serves its purpose. There is a divine rhythm woven through creation itself, a sacred pattern that calls for preparation not merely through anticipation, but through release. And so, when heaven whispers of a coming breakthrough, it rarely begins with addition, it begins with subtraction. Not as a loss, but as a holy cleansing, not as deprivation, but as divine design. There are things you must release to make room for what God is about to place in your life, not because those things were evil, but because they were temporary. Not because they were without meaning, but but because their meaning has already been fulfilled. The clutter that once served you now crowds the space where new glory is meant to dwell. There is a beautiful mystery in this way of life, one that trains your soul to value the unseen more than the visible. It teaches you to live as though the breakthrough were already in motion, not because you are pretending, but because you are perceiving with a deeper vision, a vision that belongs not to the natural senses, but to the eyes of the heart, a vision shaped not by sight, but by faith. It is the soul's quiet insistence. I do not see it yet, but I know it's coming, and I will live in readiness. This readiness is not frantic striving, it is not anxious activity. It is a steady, sacred alignment, a life positioned in peace, postured in expectation. It is making your house ready for rain before a single cloud has formed. It is preparing a nursery before the child is conceived. It is setting the table before the feast is cooked. Not because you are foolish, but because you know the one who has promised. Walking before you see is not about being reckless. It is about being rooted. Rooted in the assurance that if God has spoken, it shall come to pass. Rooted in the quiet confidence that preparation is not wasted energy. It is worship in motion. It is the daily declaration spoken with hands and habits that you believe in what has not yet materialized. Sometimes the hardest part of this journey is not the waiting. It is the walking. It is the faithful action taken in the middle of the unknown. It is putting your hand to the plow when there is no sign of harvest. It is serving faithfully in the shadows while still waiting for your day in the light. It is waking each morning and choosing to live like a person already blessed, already called, already walking in the miracle that is still making its way to you. And this, perhaps, is the most transforming truth. When you walk before you see, you do not merely wait for the breakthrough. You become the kind of person who can carry it. The act of walking shapes you. It refines your motives. It deepens your dependence. It matures your spirit so that the blessing, when it finally arrives, does not overwhelm you. It fits you. It feels like an old friend, not a foreign guest, because your soul was already living in its rhythm long before your eyes could see it. In this way, your life becomes a vessel of prophetic alignment. Your words, your choices, your discipline, your prayers, all of them rise together as an offering of expectancy. You stop asking merely, when will it happen? And you start asking, how can I be ready when it does? That is the shift from passive wishing to holy preparation. Living ready also means protecting your heart from bitterness in the meantime. When others doubt you, mock your preparation, or question your hope, you do not falter, for they see only with natural eyes, but you walk with a deeper compass. You do not need constant affirmation because you are anchored in the quiet assurance of divine timing. Your readiness becomes a quiet resistance against cynicism, a declaration that you still believe good things are coming even when nothing has yet changed. This kind of faith becomes a lamp unto your path. It may not show you the whole road, but it gives you light for the next step. And that next step is all you need. You begin to see that breakthrough is not just one grand moment. It is a series of small obediences, stacked day upon day, that eventually meet the moment of fulfillment. So you keep walking, not rushing, not dragging your feet, but walking with steady grace. Sometimes you'll feel as though nothing is happening. The sky will remain silent, the doors unmoved, the promises untouched. But what you may not see is how much your soul is shifting in the walk, the preparation happening in the background, the divine weaving beneath the surface. Heaven is not slow, it is strategic. And every step you take in readiness becomes an invitation for the divine to draw near. And when the moment finally comes, when the breakthrough finally steps into the visible world, you will not scramble to adjust, you will not rush to accommodate. You will simply receive it with open arms, because your life has already been making space for it all along. You will be able to stand under its weight, not because you are lucky, but because you are ready. So keep walking, beloved soul. Walk with hope before the sign. Walk with peace before the answer. Walk with purpose before the door opens. Let your life be a song of readiness, a quiet melody that says, I believe what is coming and I will live like it. So now, walk boldly even before the promise appears. Prepare not because you see, but because you believe. What seems invisible today is already unfolding in heaven's design. Your readiness is not in vain. It is a declaration of faith, a silent song that says, I trust what is coming. The breakthrough you await will not find you unprepared, for you have been building in the unseen. You are not behind, you are aligned. You are not forgotten, you are favored. Keep walking, keep preparing, keep hoping, for what is coming is greater than you imagined, and you will be ready